When most people talk about the global rivalry between China and the United States, they focus on things like economic growth, military budgets, tech innovation. But if you really want to understand why China is such a heavyweight on the world stage, you gotta look at something way more concrete, literally. I'm talking about world-leading infrastructure and long-term planning on a scale that's honestly hard to wrap your head around. Let's start with something that blows my mind every time: high-speed rail. By the end of 2024, China's high-speed rail network hit about 48,000 kilometers. That's more than the rest of the world combined. Imagine getting on a train in Beijing, and a few hours later you're in Shanghai or even deep in the country's interior. And we're not talking about a handful of lines. This is a dense, interconnected web that makes travel super efficient for hundreds of millions of people every year. But it's not just about trains. China's poured trillions into new highways, huge shipping ports and massive airports. We're talking about the world's largest container port in Shanghai airports built practically overnight, and logistics hubs that connect factories to markets across every continent. Compare that to the US, where planning a new highway or rail line can take decades just to get approval. In China, big projects get greenlit, fast funded by the state, and finished in record time. So why does this matter? Well, modern infrastructure isn't just about convenience. It's the backbone of a competitive economy. Smooth logistics mean businesses pay less to move goods. Cities and industries become more connected. And when a country can move people and products quickly and cheaply, it's way easier to scale up manufacturing, attract investment, and respond to global demand. And here's the kicker. It's not just about building stuff for today. China's government thinks in terms of decades, not election cycles. There's a master plan behind the concrete. From export corridors that reach all the way to Europe to economic zones designed to supercharge entire regions. Every new bridge, rail line, or port isn't just a piece of infrastructure, it's a building block in a long game to make China more powerful and more connected to the world. So, when you ask why China is stronger than the US in some ways, don't forget the simple, massive power of infrastructure and planning. It's not the flashiest topic, but it might be the most important. And it's shaping the future right before our eyes. The world is changing fast. Climate change is pushing countries to ditch oil and coal for cleaner technologies. This shift, known as the Green Revolution, is more than just environmental. It's a race for global leadership in the industries of the future. The nations that master clean energy tech will shape the world's economy and wield enormous influence, just as oil-rich countries did in the last century. But this time, the power isn't underground. It's in factories, in batteries, solar panels, and the materials that make them. In this new race, China has surged ahead. While others debated, China invested heavily, building up its green industries with government support and long-term planning. Now the US and Europe find themselves dependent on China for key green technologies. This marks a dramatic shift in global power. The race isn't over, but China's head start is undeniable. Understanding how China built this lead is crucial to understanding today's world. It's a story of vision, investment, and relentless execution. The future of global power is being shaped right now, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Electric vehicles are at the heart of the Green Revolution, and their batteries are the key. China dominates this market, producing more EV batteries than the rest of the world combined. Two giants lead the way: CATL, the world's largest battery maker, and BYD, which also builds its own electric cars. Together, Chinese companies supply over 2/3 of the world's EV batteries. This didn't happen by chance. China's government poured money and resources into building a complete supply chain, from raw materials to finished batteries. Western automakers like Ford and Volkswagen now rely on Chinese batteries even as they try to catch up. Building new factories and supply chains in the West takes years and billions of dollars. China's head start is massive, and catching up won't be easy. For now, the road to an electric future runs through China. The world's auto industry is being reshaped, and China is in the driver's seat. The question is, can anyone else catch up? The race is on, but China's lead is real. The future of transportation may depend on it. Solar power is another pillar of the green transition, and here too, China leads. China produces about 80% of the world's solar panels, making clean energy affordable everywhere. It also controls nearly all the key materials like polysilicon needed to make solar cells. This dominance is the result of government strategy and relentless manufacturing innovation. While the West focused on research, China built massive factories and drove down costs. The result, solar energy is now cheaper and more accessible, but the world depends on China for supply. Western solar industries have shrunk, unable to compete with Chinese prices. Now, the US and Europe are scrambling to rebuild their own solar manufacturing. But China's solar industry is already a global powerhouse. The world's clean energy future is being shaped in Chinese factories. The challenge for others: how to compete without falling further behind. The sun may shine everywhere, but the panels come from China. Beyond batteries and solar panels, China's grip on rare earth elements is even tighter. These 17 metals are essential for EVs, wind turbines, smartphones, and military tech. China processes nearly 90% of the world's rare earths, a result of years of investment and willingness to handle the environmental costs. Even if other countries mine rare earths, they often send them to China for processing. This gives China enormous leverage over global tech industries. In 2010, China cut off rare earth exports to Japan during a dispute, showing its power. Since then, the US and allies have tried to build their own supply chains, but progress is slow and costly. Creating a new rare earth industry takes years and huge investment. For now, the world remains deeply dependent on China for these critical materials. China's hidden strength in rare earths is a powerful strategic asset. The global tech race runs through China's rare earth supply. Breaking free won't be easy. The US and its allies now realize the risks of relying on China for green technology. New laws and massive investments aim to rebuild battery, solar, and rare earth industries at home. Gigafactories are rising across America, and Europe is pushing to revive its own manufacturing. But China's decade-long head start and scale make catching up a monumental challenge. Building factories, training workers, and securing materials all take time. Meanwhile, China keeps innovating and cutting costs. The global energy transition has created a new landscape of power. China's dominance in batteries, solar panels, and rare earths gives it huge influence. The West is finally awake to the challenge, but the road ahead is long. The race for a green future is on. For now, China leads by a wide margin. The outcome will shape the world for decades. Who will win the green revolution? The world is watching. On the grand chessboard of global affairs, nations have always vied for power. This is a simple, enduring truth of history. Power is not just about military might or the size of a country's army. It is about influence. It's the ability to shape events, to secure favorable trade deals, and to ensure one's own national security and prosperity. For centuries, great powers have understood this. They have built empires, forged alliances, and controlled trade routes to project their strength far beyond their borders. The United States mastered this in the 20th century, creating a global order built on its economic and diplomatic leadership. Today, a new chapter in this age-old story is being written, and its author is China. The methods for gaining influence change with the times. In the past, it might have been through colonization or military force, but in our interconnected 21st century world, the most effective tool is often economic. A country that can build your roads, power your cities, and connect you to global markets holds a special kind of leverage. It becomes not a conqueror but a partner, an indispensable one. This is the modern path to power, one that relies on concrete and steel rather than cannons and warships. It is a quieter, more subtle form of expansion, but its effects on the global balance of power can be just as profound, if not more so. This is the context we need to understand China's rise. While the United States has been focused on military conflicts in the Middle East and political debates at home, China has been playing a different game. It has been methodically and patiently building a web of economic relationships across the globe. Beijing looked at the world and saw a vast need for infrastructure, ports, railways, bridges, and power plants. It recognized that financing these projects would not only be profitable. In 2013, Chinese President Xi Jinping unveiled a breathtakingly ambitious vision. He called it the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. The name harks back to the ancient Silk Road, the legendary network of trade routes. But this modern version is far grander in scope and scale. The Belt refers to the overland corridors, networks of roads, railways, pipelines snaking across Asia and into Europe. The road refers to the 21st century maritime Silk Road, a chain of sea lanes and ports, connecting China to Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America. At its core, the BRI is a massive global infrastructure development strategy. China offers to finance and build essential projects that developing countries need but cannot afford. Think of a new deep-water port in Pakistan, giving it access to the Arabian Sea, or a high-speed railway cutting across Laos, connecting the landlocked nation to its neighbors, or power grids, telecommunication networks being constructed across the African continent. These are not small-scale aid projects. They are transformative, multi-billion-dollar undertakings. This initiative is the centerpiece of China's foreign policy. It is a vehicle for state-owned companies to go global, exporting Chinese technology. The sheer scale of the Belt and Road Initiative is difficult to comprehend. This is not just a policy paper, or a set of abstract goals. It is one of the largest investment and infrastructure programs in human history. Since its launch in 2013, the total value of projects planned or underway has surpassed an astonishing $1 trillion. That is more than 7 times the Marshall Plan, the United States initiative that rebuilt Western Europe after World War II. It is a monumental wager on the future of the global economy, with China as the primary banker and builder. The money flows to every corner of the globe. Official data shows annual Chinese investment and construction contracts related to the BRI run into the tens of billions. In some years, the figure has approached 100 billion. These funds are financing everything from the $62 billion China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a massive collection of energy and infrastructure projects, a $6.7 billion railway in Laos, a $4 billion port in Kenya. The investments are not limited to Asia and Africa. They have reached Europe. Chinese companies buying stakes in ports like Piraeus in Greece. They have extended to Latin America. China is funding dams, roads, and railways. This flood of capital has a simple, powerful logic. China has accumulated vast foreign exchange reserves. The BRI provides a strategic way to invest that money abroad. Rather than simply buying U.S. Treasury bonds, which offer low returns, China is using its capital to build hard assets that generate long-term economic and strategic benefits. These projects secure vital supply chains for natural resources, like oil from the Middle East, or minerals from Africa. They are essential for fueling China's industrial economy. Every new port and pipeline helps insulate China from geopolitical disruptions and strengthens its economic security. Smartphones, automobiles. It becomes a virtuous cycle reinforcing China's role in the global economy. Finally, China can challenge the US-led order without firing a shot. Its soft power through construction companies and banks. Unlike US military bases and alliances, China offers economic partnership. It prioritizes growth over political ideology. But let's be clear, this is not charity. The vast majority of this financing comes in the form of loans, not grants. Countries are expected to pay China back, often with interest. This business-like approach is a key part of the model. It aims to make projects commercially viable while also creating a dynamic of financial dependence. The scale of the lending is so significant that China has become the world's largest official creditor, surpassing traditional lenders like the World Bank and the IMF. It is a quiet financial takeover happening one loan at a time. The trillion-dollar question is, what does China get in return for this massive outlay? The benefits are multi-layered, extending far beyond simple financial profit. The most famous case is Sri Lanka's Hambantota port. In 2017, it handed control of the port to a Chinese state-owned company on a 99-year lease, fueling fears of debt-trap diplomacy. There has also been political backlash in some countries. The promise of gleaming new infrastructure does not always match reality. Lack of transparency, environmental damage, reliance on Chinese labor, Malaysia, Maldives. This shows China's influence is not absolute. Public opinion and domestic politics can create big headwinds for Beijing. Furthermore, China is investing in politically and economically unstable regions. Building a railway through a conflict-prone area or a pipeline across a volatile border carries immense risk. In summary, the Belt and Road represents a fundamental shift in the international landscape. It is a bold, long-term plan to place China at the center of a new global economic network. China's rise is a story of many dimensions. It is a story of history, culture, political will. Yet, at its very core, it is a story of numbers. The sheer scale of its population is the fundamental bedrock upon which its modern economic power has been constructed. For decades, the world has become accustomed to thinking of China as the world's factory. This is an important but incomplete picture. The more profound transformation, and the one that will define the 21st century, is China's evolution into the world's preeminent consumer market. This is not a future prospect. It is a present-day reality that reshapes global economic and political calculations. The numbers are staggering and honestly difficult for many in the West to truly comprehend in their implications. This transformation from a production-centric economy to a consumption-driven one is the crucial pivot in China's journey. With a population that, as of our current date in September 2025, hovers around 1.42 billion people, the country possesses a domestic consumer base that is unmatched in human history. This is not simply a large number of people. It is an increasingly affluent, urbanized, and digitally connected populace with growing disposable income and sophisticated tastes. This internal market provides a level of demand that acts as a powerful engine for economic growth innovation. Resilience. It is the ultimate strategic asset, a gravitational force that pulls the global economy into its orbit and fundamentally alters the balance of power. The concept of a market in the Chinese context must be understood on a different order of magnitude. What might be considered a niche market in a Western country can be a mass market in China. A product that captures even a tiny fraction of a single percentage point of the Chinese consumer base can be an incredible commercial success, sustaining entire companies. This reality provides a unique advantage that no other country can easily replicate. It is a demographic dividend that has shifted from providing low-cost labor to providing unparalleled domestic demand. This immense internal consumption capacity is the wellspring of China's economic strength and its growing confidence on the world stage, a fact that is still being slowly digested by international observers. Before a single product is exported, before a single trade deal is signed with a foreign partner, Chinese companies have access to a proving ground of over 1 billion potential customers. This domestic arena serves as both a launchpad and a safety net. It allows businesses to achieve economies of scale, refine their products, and build formidable brands without ever needing to look beyond their own borders. This luxury of scale is something that companies from smaller nations like South Korea or even Germany can only dream of. It is this foundational advantage, the sheer, overwhelming size of its home market, that underpins China's emergence as a global economic powerhouse, distinct from all that have come before it. Population scale is the most fundamental ingredient of national economic power. A larger population naturally creates a larger pool producers-consumers. In China's case, this principle is magnified to an unprecedented degree. The United States, for much of the 20th century, leveraged its large and wealthy domestic market to become the world's dominant economy. Today, China is deploying the same strategy, but on a far grander scale. With a population of roughly 1.42 billion, it has more than 4 times the number of people as the United States, which has a population of around 340 million. This simple demographic fact has profound economic consequences that are reshaping the global landscape. This numerical superiority translates directly into market size. While per capita GDP in the US remains higher, the sheer volume of consumers in China creates a total market size that rivals and, in many sectors, surpasses that of America. This is not just about selling more low-cost items, it is about the aggregate demand for everything from smartphones, electric vehicles, luxury goods, streaming services. A vast population allows for the creation of massive data sets, which fuels advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Resilience. It is the ultimate strategic asset, a gravitational force that pulls the global economy into its orbit and fundamentally alters the balance of power. To serve a market of 1.42 billion people, factories must be enormous and highly efficient. This necessity drives constant investment in automation, logistics, supply chain optimization. The profits generated from this huge domestic market can then be reinvested into research and development on a massive scale. A Chinese technology company can justify a multi-billion-dollar R&D budget because the potential return from its home market alone is so immense. This creates a virtuous cycle. Large population fuels a large market, which funds large-scale production and innovation, which in turn leads to even greater economic strength and competitiveness. This scale advantage also provides a crucial buffer against external economic shocks. While countries with smaller domestic markets are highly dependent on exports and thus vulnerable to global downturns or trade disputes, China has a greater capacity to look inward. The immense scale of China's domestic market acts as a powerful incubator for creating globally competitive companies. Chinese businesses can grow into behemoths by serving only their home market first. They can test products, refine marketing strategies, achieve massive economies of scale by selling to hundreds of millions of consumers. This forges domestic champions already giants before they go global. Businesses from smaller countries must think internationally early. Think of companies like Alibaba, Taobao, and Tmall process more transactions than any Western e-commerce, all driven primarily by Chinese consumers. Tencent WeChat is an ecosystem for over 1 billion users integrating social media, payments, services. BYD honed EV technology and scaled production by serving the world's largest EV market. These firms became world-class by conquering a world-sized home market. Domestic incubation provides a formidable competitive advantage. By the time Huawei or Xiaomi expand abroad, they have production efficiency and financial strength. Hard for rivals to match. They weathered intense domestic competition, navigated complex logistics across a vast country, built massive cash reserves. They arrived not as startups but as hardened veterans with deep pockets and optimized business models. China's scale creates a conveyor belt of corporate giants. This fosters rapid, mobile-first innovation. Digital payments, logistics, social e-commerce, artificial intelligence applications. Solutions for China are often more advanced and scalable because they are designed to serve 1 billion-plus users. When they go global, they bring not just cheaper products but innovative services and business models that can disrupt markets. The domestic market is their laboratory and their fortress. The sheer size of China's consumer market has transformed it from the world's factory into the world's ultimate prize. For any global corporation with ambitions of growth, having a significant presence in China is no longer optional, it's essential. The prospect of selling to even a fraction of its 1.42 billion people is an irresistible lure, drawing in businesses from every sector. Apple, Tesla, Volkswagen, BMW, LVMH. They all recognize their future growth is tied to success in China. Beijing's market pull gives it significant leverage. Access to China is a potent bargaining chip in trade and diplomacy. Foreign firms often must comply with local regulations, enter joint ventures with Chinese partners, and transfer technology. That approach has helped China's industries move up the value chain. Many firms accept those terms, sometimes boosting their future competitors. The market scale outweighs the perceived risks. The numbers tell a clear story. China is the largest or second largest market for many global giants. Apple pulls a big share of revenue from Greater China. German car makers depend on China for a huge slice of sales. This marks a shift from an America-centered economy to a China-centered one. For decades, the world economy was centered on the American consumer. Today, the Chinese consumer is increasingly at the center, and global corporate strategies are being rewritten. This is the status quo of 2025. The story of China's rise to a global powerhouse is, and will continue to be, the story of its billion-plus consumers and the unprecedented economic force they represent. In our modern world, everything we touch seems to come from somewhere else. Your phone, your clothes, the parts in your car, the toys your children play with, are all products of a vast, interconnected system. This system is called the global supply chain. It is a long chain of companies and workers that design, make, ship goods all over the planet. At the heart of this system is manufacturing, the process of making things in factories. The country that controls manufacturing holds enormous power. It decides what gets made, how much it costs when it arrives. This is not just about business, it is about global influence and economic strength. Understanding this power is key to understanding the world today. When one nation becomes the primary workshop for everyone else, it gains a unique and powerful position. It can influence international trade and politics in ways that others cannot. Imagine a single store that sells almost everything everyone in your town needs. That store owner would have incredible influence over prices and availability. On a global scale, China has become that store. Its ability to produce a massive variety of goods, from simple textiles to complex electronics, has made it an indispensable part of the global economy. This didn't happen by accident. It was the result of decades of planning and hard work. This dominance in making things has profound consequences for every other country, including powerful nations like the United States. For years, the United States was the world's manufacturing leader, but that has changed. To understand China's power, we must first look at the simple numbers. The data tells a story that is hard to ignore. Today, China is responsible for producing nearly 1/3 of everything made in the world. The most recent figures show that its share of global manufacturing output is around 28 to 29%. This is a staggering statistic. It means that for every 3 cars, one is likely made in China. It means that for every 3 computers, one is likely made in China. It means that for every 3 coffee makers, one is likely made in China. No other country even comes close to this level of production. The United States, the world's second largest manufacturer, accounts for a much smaller share, roughly 16%. This did not happen overnight. Decades ago, China was a poor, agrarian country, but through strategic government policies, massive investments in infrastructure, and the mobilization of a huge workforce, it transformed itself. It built enormous factories, modern ports, and high-speed railways. These investments created an ecosystem designed for one purpose, making things efficiently and cheaply. This vast scale is China's biggest advantage. It allows Chinese factories to produce goods at a lower cost than almost anywhere else, a concept known as economies of scale. Having such a large share of global manufacturing gives China enormous control over the world's supply chains. It acts like the central hub in a giant wheel. Raw materials and components flow into China, finished goods flow out to the world. Goods and components flow out from China to nearly every country on Earth. This position allows it to influence both the availability and the price of countless products. When Chinese factories are running smoothly, the world enjoys a steady stream of affordable goods. But if China decides to slow down production or raise prices, the entire world feels the impact. This gives Beijing a powerful economic lever that it can use to achieve its strategic goals. This control is most visible in industries where China has a near monopoly. Take, for example, rare earth minerals. These are a group of 17 elements crucial for making high-tech products like electric vehicles, wind turbines, advanced military equipment. China controls over 80% of the global processing for these essential materials. Even if another country finds a deposit, it would likely have to send them to China to be refined. This gives China the ability to restrict the supply of these minerals, a threat it has used in past political disputes. Beyond rare materials, China's pricing power affects everyday goods. Because it produces so much, China often sets the global price for many manufactured items. If Chinese factories can make a product for a lower cost, competitors elsewhere must match that price or close. That pressure keeps consumer prices low worldwide. But it also hollows out the manufacturing sectors in other nations. Countries then lose the skills and infrastructure needed to make things for themselves. The world received a harsh lesson in supply chain dependency during the COVID-19 pandemic. When China implemented strict lockdowns in early 2020, its factories ground to a halt. Suddenly, the global flow of goods was choked off at its source. The effects were immediate and catastrophic. Hospitals around the world faced critical shortages of personal protective equipment, masks, gowns, gloves. Before the pandemic, China produced about half of the world's medical masks. When its factories shut down, the supply vanished, leaving other nations scrambling and exposed. This was a wake-up call for governments and businesses. They realized efficiency-driven supply chains were also fragile. For decades, companies prioritized low costs and concentrated manufacturing in China. The pandemic revealed the hidden risk. The disruption wasn't limited to medical supplies. The auto industry was hit by a semiconductor chip shortage. Many chips are packaged and tested in China. Car manufacturers in the US and Europe halted production lines. They lost billions in revenue. Consumers faced long waiting lists for new vehicles. These supply shocks show how China's manufacturing scale gives it leverage. Any disruption inside China creates ripple effects globally, from a health crisis, a natural disaster, or a policy decision. As the world grapples with this dependency, a key question arises. Will China remain the world's factory forever? There are signs of change on the horizon. Labor costs in China are rising. It is no longer the ultra-cheap manufacturing hub it was 20 years ago. Low-margin products like t-shirts, shoes are moving operations to cheaper countries. Southeast Asia, Latin America. This trend is called China +1. Companies keep main operations in China but open a second, smaller factory elsewhere as a backup. China itself is changing. The government won't settle for being the world's workshop for cheap goods. It's pushing industries up the value chain. Beijing wants to lead in robotics, artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, biotechnology. It's investing heavily in automation, replacing human workers on assembly lines with advanced robots. Automation offsets rising labor costs and boosts efficiency, so while some low-skilled jobs may leave, China is tightening its grip on high-skilled, high-value production. This shift is a new challenge for the United States and other advanced economies. In the electric vehicle market, BYD dominates at home and is becoming a major global exporter. Manufacturing scale plus innovation is a powerful, hard-to-counter formula. While some production shifts, China's reign as the world's factory is far from over.